happens when your body throws a red flag and the world call it a bad luck. And survivor of both type 1 diabetes and a heart attack before 43. Her raw, messy, and deeply honest story is a wake up call not just about health, but about healing. From mom guilt to self care to women's heart health, Sarah's voice is loud, unfiltered, and impossible to ignore because it speaks straight to the truth. Honored to have you on my show.
I'm so honored to be here. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us. And also, Sarah, your story didn't start in a clinic, you started in chaos. So, what was going through your mind when you heard you had a heart attack?
Well, let me tell you, it's a very surreal experience when you experience anything that is traumatic to yourself. And quite honestly, I drove myself to the hospital only because I was encouraged by my oldest daughter, who thought maybe it was diabetic related. And, out of the mouths of babes, otherwise I probably would not have gone. And when I got there and they triaged me and hooked me up to the little EKG machine, and the nurse disappeared and returned back with about 8 people in a very tiny room, and they informed me that I was having a massive heart attack, and I just it's sort of denial at first, and I will say I had no symptoms, no symptoms. I had no chest pain, no headache, no jaw pain, nothing that would alert me to think I was having a heart attack. I was a little bit extra tired, that's all. And who of women or moms or caretakers is not a little bit extra tired?
Yes, that's so beautiful. And thank you for sharing this with us. And in the weeks after that moment,
So, imagine you've received this news. It's been earth-shattering, and just completely rocked the world that I thought I knew. But what I realized is I needed to have a really long accountability talk with myself. And what I mean by that is there were a lot of times where I didn't put my care at the front and took care of me. A lot of moms, after having children, we just throw ourselves into being moms. And it's not anything terrible. It's not in a martyr way. It's just this is what our life is now. And then every time that little voice that kind of creeps up that says, "Hey, maybe you should go take a walk for yourself, or maybe you should do this for yourself," I would push that voice back down because I thought, "No, I need to be here and do for my children." And that's great, and we do need to do for our children, but the problem is we need to find balance and keep those guilt demons away of, wanting to take care of ourselves, because at the end of the day, if we're not taking care of ourselves, we don't have much left to give others. So it was a true accountability talk with myself. What had I not done? What had I not faced? What was I not doing for myself? And just realizing that if I want to be around with my children, I needed to change things drastically.
yes. And that kind of shock has a way of making you see what truly matters and what never did. And
Yes.
so you speak openly about the link between self care and survival. So, what does real self care look like when you are a mom, a woman, and
So it looks different for everybody. What I will say is you have to force yourself to make the time. It had to become almost a practice for me, because if I didn't carve out the time to do these very simple little things for myself, then I would just say, "Oh, I can do that later. Oh, I don't really need to do that now. Oh, my child needs this. Oh, my child needs that." And um, you just need to make sure that whatever the time is, it becomes a daily habit, and it can start very small. I started with very small time incremental pieces because I knew I still had 3 children to take care of. They needed me, but I had to make sure that I was forcing myself to take care of myself. And we're talking, at the time, I didn't really even know how to properly breathe. And if you think about that for a minute, a lot of us are just shallow breathers. And yes, it's a involuntary muscle. It just kind of does it on its own. But there's something to be said in true practice if you really just take the time to take those long, deep breaths and just calm your mind and your body, and then just kind of go back to the task that you're doing. And I didn't even know that I should have been doing that. And so having to just teach myself those things and to just sit quietly for a minute, that just took practice.
That's so, so wonderful. And how do we begin untangling care from guilt, especially in motherhood?
Yeah, so I would definitely recommend you have to start setting, even if it's small boundaries, you have to start setting boundaries, and the way I was able to achieve this is I got the kids involved. It was the same time of day every day, and it was they needed to go into their room, and I needed to go into my room or a space or whichever, and, mind you, my kids were older at this time, so they could be left alone, and it wasn't for a very long time, but we all needed to we just called it break time, and everybody could go and do what they needed to do so I could get that 10 or 15 minutes by myself of just recentering myself, maybe have a prayer, sit in silence, and just breathe. And that way I could come back and they started to see the difference in me, and I started to see the difference in them. And all of a sudden, we're not so crabby to each other. And we're really taking the time to be mindful.
Yes, it's so wild how something as essential as rest or nourishment can feel like a rebellion.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
So, women's heart health is still underrepresented. What do you wish every woman knew right now about their heart?
Yes, I love this question and it's so, so incredibly important. First, let's do a few boring statistics. We always talk about when we talk about women's health, breast cancer is at the forefront. And as it should be, that is a very important topic. But it's 1 in 3 women will get breast cancer, okay? It's 1 in 2 women that will get heart disease, and we're not talking about it. In fact, for men, it's 1 in 3 for heart disease, and we talk about it with men much more than we do with women. We need to be making sure that heart health is at the forefront of part of that wellness that we give ourselves. And when I tell you that I had no symptoms, that is very common in women. That's why they call it the silent killer. And I had when they ran my tests and they, did all these things with me, I did not have high cholesterol and I did not have high blood pressure. I had very high stress, excuse me, and uncontrolled blood sugar, but it was not the standard symptoms that you think you should have. So when I tell you that stress does damage you on a very cellular level, that is 100% true. And we need to be taking steps. It goes hand in hand. You have to take those moments for yourself so you can be able to give your heart the calmness that it needs. And if it's small breathing exercises, if it's a daily walk, changing your nutrition, sitting in silence, cold plunging. I'm a huge advocate for cold plunging. Whatever you can do, even if it's just sticking your face in an ice bath, those are things that we need to start doing because the stress that we carry, we all, mostly women, internalize it, and it's wreaking havoc on our health. So we need to be talking about it. We need to be telling our friends about it, and we need to make it normal.
Yes, this is so, so important. And thank you for sharing this with us. Uh, it's really, really important for all the women out there. And also, were there some signs you ignored or maybe you missed event?
Yeah, so I would say the ignoring obviously started, just not taking care of myself properly. But there were, instances where it wasn't directly related to somebody that would say there's symptoms of a heart attack, but it was definitely symptoms of being run down. It was definitely symptoms of having too much stress, of not being able to say no, of wanting to do all of the things. And that was something that I really had to go down deep for and really get honest with myself about what am I trying to accomplish here? You can be a great mom and not have to do all the things. And that was sort of a foreign concept to me. And also normalizing saying no. You don't have to say yes to everything. And most of the time we do, especially when it comes to our children. And we just need to make sure we're noticing when we get run down, when we are feeling extra tired. That's our body and our mind. Remember, it goes hand in hand. Those are when it's telling us, trying to get us our attention and say, okay, you need to slow down, whatever that looks like for you. Does that mean need a day where you get some help with your children if that's possible? Does that mean it just you need to go take a walk? Whatever that looks like, you need to start creating those daily habits so the rundown periods are always going to come, right? That's just part of life. But you need to be able to put these daily habits into place so they're few and far between and that you can recognize it.
That is so true that silence around symptoms, especially in women, can be so deadly. And also in your podcast and wellness brand both grew out of the mess. So how did sharing the messy parts become a form of healing for you?
Yes, I love this too. Most of the time, people talk about what happened after they went on their hurt healing journey, or maybe a modality they picked up to help them get through their journey. But what they don't talk about, or they don't like to talk about, is that moment that you sit down, or for me, it was a lot of moments, and you just have that ugly cry and you just sort of purge all those emotions out of you. And you just sit there and you ride those waves. And it doesn't mean that we're not tough. It doesn't mean that we can't handle things. It just means that because we do internalize things, we need to get that out. And just for a little bit, not to stay there, but just for a little bit, we need to sit in what I like to call those messy waves, those messy emotions. They don't feel good. It's an icky feeling. Nobody likes to ugly cry. But if we can just sit in it and ride out the waves until we start to be able to catch our breath and breathe and think a little clearer, you're going to emerge out of that storm. You'll actually feel stronger. You'll feel like maybe you can tackle more things. And if you remember that, going forward, that will give you more strength for the next time that messy chaos comes, because believe me, it's going to come. It's not just a one and done thing in our lifetime. So we should embrace those feelings. Now, again, I'm not advocating to sit there and stay there, and I'm certainly not advocating to become a victim of our circumstances. But we do owe ourselves a moment to sit and recognize why we're feeling the way that we are, and then we're going to pick ourselves up, and one slow step at a time, we're going to move forward. And that is empowerment. That's going to make you feel stronger. And I can't tell you how many times in my life that I just brushed over that. I didn't want to be the weak person. I didn't want to cry. I didn't want to sit there. And I thought, yeah, I don't cry. I must be great. I don't have emotions. And really I was just doing damage to myself because I didn't allow myself to feel.
Yes, that is so true. And there is something very magnetic about truth. And what would you say to someone who is listening and who feels like their body is betraying them or that they are just too far gone to begin?
I would say meet yourself where you're at. Meet yourself where you're at. Do not put any extra pressure or added stress already onto your already stressed out body. Just tell yourself one thing today. If that's, you took a 5-minute walk, if that's you sat in traffic at the traffic light at the 2 minutes when it's red and you just did deep breathing, then you were able to do that. Just start doing very little, what you think are inconsequential, and they're really not, though, but just giving yourself that grace to say, okay, just one thing. And your brain will start to feel that reward and it will want more. And pretty soon you'll find yourself carving out time to do these small little things. Like I mentioned, the cold plunge. Not everybody can get to a place where you can do that or has one of those in their backyard. So even if it's just putting a bowl with ice and cold water and putting your face in it, or even your hands, start somewhere where you're going to have your body have a reaction, and it's going to slow your heart down, and it's going to make you breathe. These very, very tiny things that we can do actually will add up, and your body and your mind will not feel like you're ignoring it.
That is so, so, so beautiful. I think this is a very doable and accessible practice that I think anyone can do wherever they are. And thank you for sharing this with us and with our listeners.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Vulnerability is what most wellness spaces are still missing.
Yes. Yes, I think there's so much information out there, right? There's so much things that some may work for some people and others may not work for people. You know yourself the best. You know your body. Your body wants to work the hardest for you. That's what it's designed to do. So, trying to stay away from the fads, trying to stay away from the coolest thing, and just listen to what your body needs and only ask small things. Don't overwhelm yourself, and you will start to gain that momentum and you'll start to prove to yourself, oh, I can do more. I can do more. But start slow. Don't overwhelm an already overwhelmed system.
So wonderful. And this is a wonderful conversation with you. And thank you for sharing so much of your knowledge, your experiences, all your stories. I genuinely have no words for this. And if
Oh,
after this, my listeners want to connect with you, then what's the best way?
yes, I loved connecting. I have a podcast. It's Everything's Messy Podcast. You can find that on all the platforms, including the YouTube channel, Everything's Messy. I have a website, Everything's Messy Wellness. There's a couple of forums up there right now where you can actually go through and see if you're having any sort of chronic sickness, inflammation. There's some checklists you can look at. I'm happy to talk. You can find me on Instagram at Everything's Messy Wellness. I'm on TikTok, Everything's Mess, X Everything's Mess. Reach out, send me, something, anything that you are struggling with, because I think one of the things that we really need to connect with as well is due to the way that the world is nowadays, right? It's just a fast-paced running world. I think we can all relate and connect on one thing, and that's we all need to learn how to slow down. It's not something that we're used to. And so just being able to connect with that, I love hearing stories of people being able to do that or new tricks and tips. I don't know everything. I love for anybody to share whatever they know, and just as we can help each other, not only as women, but as a society, just learn how to slow down. That's so important.
Yes, and I will make sure to attach all the details and links below so that the listeners can find them easily and get in touch with you and have a conversation with you and know more about you because you're a wonderful person and I'm really honored to have you. And to all my listeners, life isn't clean, filtered, or predictable. But as Sarah reminded us, and your message can become your mission. So if your heart has been whispering or screaming, don't wait for permission. Begin now, unpolished, unapologetic, and alive. Until next time, let the soul mirror show you that the strength you have is carried all along. Thank you.